Part 6. Landing 300 Years in Advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 51. Sir, that thing doesn't seem to be dead. At this time, Xuanhuan, who was standing next to Chen Ronghuo with a dagger in his hand, suddenly reminded him. I know. Chen Ronghuo nodded, it's a ghost, and it's hard to kill it using ordinary methods. But we don't have to pay attention to it. This thing can only be used to confuse and scare people. It's not dangerous to us. After that, he looked at Zhu Deipen and said, Zhu Deipen, just continue to do what I told you just now. Woo. At this time, the white-clothed female ghost that was just cut in half by Zhu Deipen gathered her body again. After gathering her body again, she touched her pretty face with her hand and sobbed softly. As she sobbed, in an instant, 7 or 8 ghosts, male or female, old or young, appeared, either far or near. One ghost after another circled around the 3 people, bringing gusts of cold wind, and the ghostly aura made the surrounding temperature drop by several degrees, giving the 3 people goosebumps. Seeing this scene, Xuanhuan and Zhu Deipen immediately tensed up. Don't worry, these things are all the same. Chen Ronghuo used the power of the ancient book to identify them one by one, and waved his hand again. Although so many ghosts with missing arms or legs gathered together, it was extremely scary, but he had now seen through their essence, so he was naturally not as scared as at the beginning. Okay. Zhu Deipen gritted his teeth and tried not to look at those things. He followed Chen Ronghuo's instructions, walked quickly forward, walked to the big tree a few meters away, and reached out to touch the big tree. After this touch, it seemed that nothing changed. But Chen Ronghuo didn't care, he continued, go left, touch the tree again after you meet it. Yes, that's it, you go right now. According to Chen Ronghuo's instructions, Zhu Deipen led the way in front, and soon, the 3 of them didn't know where they turned. At this time, even if Xuanhuan and Zhu Deipen were asked to find the way back, they couldn't find it. However, what made the 2 feel at ease was that the dozen ghosts, although they had been following them, did not attack them as Chen Ronghuo said. Swish. At this moment, after Zhu Deipen touched a big tree again, the fog in front of him suddenly dissipated a little. Then they found that the 3 of them had come to a cliff. Near this cliff, the fog was thin, and the visible range could even reach more than 20 meters at a glance. And on the cliff within this range of more than 20 meters, there were 4 or 5 caves of different sizes. Even the smallest cave could allow a big guy like Zhu Deipen to walk in completely. But in each of these caves, there was a faint blue light flashing. It was a bit weird, like a jumping ghost fire. After the few people came here, the forest fog ghosts that had just followed them disappeared without a sound. It's here, let's go in. After looking at these caves, Chen Ronghuo pointed to the largest cave and said, let's go in from here, but be careful. These caves should be connected. The blood snake must be hiding here. Xuanhuan was surprised and didn't know how Chen Ronghuo knew so much about this place. It was obvious that even if he had 100 brains, he couldn't guess the truth. As for Zhu Deipen, after Chen Ronghuo finished speaking, he followed Chen Ronghuo's instructions and walked into the largest cave. Entering the cave, Chen Ronghuo immediately discovered that the dim light in the cave was emitted by some dim blue stones embedded in the cave. It's just that these stones were not formed naturally, but seemed to be deliberately embedded in the cave. Dark light stone, it can absorb energy from soil and stone and emit dim blue phosphorescence. It was embedded in the cave by a peak magician of the transcendent realm nicknamed Black Snake 200 years ago. Could this be the residence of the sorcerer nicknamed Black Snake? After using ancient books to identify the origin of the dim stones in these caves, Chen Ronghuo's eyes suddenly flashed. He was a little confused, wondering what secrets there were in this misty valley that attracted so many powerful sorcerers. However, Black Snake came here 100 years later than Gao Sen, perhaps to explore this place. Shaking his head, He followed Zhu Deipen's footsteps and didn't think about it anymore. The secrets here are a bit big, and he is afraid that he can't explore them now. Suddenly, when they walked forward for more than 10 meters along the cave and turned a corner, a huge space connected to several other caves appeared in the eyes of Chen Ronghuo and the other two. The first moment they entered here, the three of them set their eyes on a blood-red strange snake about 2 meters long lying on a smooth stone at the end of the cave. Seeing the blood snake, Huanglin immediately held a dagger and approached Chen Ronghuo a little. Zhu Deipen raised his knife and tilted his head to look at Chen Ronghuo. Chen Ronghuo glanced at the blood snake. At this time, the blood snake obviously also discovered them. When it saw them walking into the cave, it immediately arched its body, raised its head, and flicked its bright tongue, as if it would attack the three people at any time. At the same time, next to the blood snake, there was a huge snake skin that it shed, which was 3 or 4 meters long. Bloodline snake, second level demon. Abilities, swift, powerful, and highly poisonous. Status, after the molting advancement, it is in a state of weakness, and its strength has declined seriously. It is currently only at the mid-stage of the first stage. After identifying the attributes of the blood snake, Chen Ronghuo nodded slightly, knowing that the information in the ancient book was not wrong. After glancing at the blood snake and the snake skin, Chen Ronghuo's eyes flashed again and fell on a small tree that was more than 3 meters high and also blood red, 3 or 4 meters away from the blood snake. Blood tea tree, it blooms once a year, with 3 to 5 flowers blooming each time, and the blooming time is only a few minutes. Blood tea contains a large amount of blood energy that is easily absorbed, which can be used to make tea or eaten directly. Blood tea can increase people's qi and blood, and can also be used for detoxification. However, after the blood tea blooms, it must be picked within a few minutes, otherwise the blood energy in it will be lost. After the blood tea is picked, it must be kept in a golden container to prevent the loss of blood energy. After identifying that the small tree in front of him was the blood tea tree, Chen Ronghuo's eyes immediately lit up. He could tell at a glance that there were 4 blood tea buds growing on the twisted branches of the blood tea tree. He didn't know the time in the cave, but he came on time, so after a rough calculation, he knew that it would definitely not take long for the blood tea tree to bloom. Do it? Seeing Zhu Deipen looking at him, Chen Ronghuo nodded. And he looked elsewhere. This was the place left by a powerful warlock, and he wanted to see if there was anything else valuable here. There will be another update at 6 p.m., and there are 220 votes. Do you have any votes, brothers? Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 52. In the dark blue cave, phosphorescence flickered. The blood snake arched its body and stared at the 3 people closely. However, if you look closely, you can see that there is light flashing in the deep red pupils of the blood snake, as if it is thinking about something. Zhu Deipen is in the late stage of the warrior realm, and this snake is currently only in the middle stage. Chen Ronghuo thinks that Zhu Deipen should be able to take down the snake alone, so he is not too worried. But after the 2 words of action fell, he reminded again, be careful not to be hurt by the snake. Although its strength has declined seriously, it is a second-level demon after all, and its snake venom cannot be underestimated. Zhu Deipen nodded. Even if Chen Ronghuo did not remind him, he would not be careless. This kind of strange snake species with all parts of its body bright red, it is unlikely to be non-venomous. He walked towards the blood snake step by step. As he approached, the blood snake's body became more tense, and the snake's tongue was rapidly swallowing and spitting out, and a slight scream was heard. After Chen Ronghuo took a general look at the cave and found nothing unusual, he looked at the blood snake in the distance again. Although the snake is only at the middle stage of the first level, it is actually a second-level demon. Even if such a powerful demon looks a bit creepy, he would not refuse if he could subdue it. But his soul strength is limited, and he can only subdue the demons of the late first level at most, so he can only give up this plan with regret. Huh. Suddenly, after getting close to the blood snake to a certain extent, Zhu Deipen moved his body, holding the knife, and pounced forward like a tiger coming down the mountain, directly approaching the blood snake lying on the smooth stone. Whoosh! The blood snake, which had been staring at Zhu Deipen, bounced its tightly bent body after Zhu Deipen took action, and instantly shot out like a blood arrow. But after avoiding Zhu Deipen's knife, it did not bounce towards Zhu Deipen, but shot towards the blood tea tree not far away. In the blink of an eye, it rushed to the blood tea tree, its smelly mouth opened, bright red, as big as a bowl, and swallowed one of the blood tea flowers that was about to bloom into its mouth. Damn it! Seeing this scene, Chen Ronghuo's face suddenly became ugly. He never thought that the blood snake would attack the blood tea flower that had not yet bloomed. Blood snake, because it had just swallowed a blood tea flower that was about to bloom, its strength was slightly improved in a short period of time. And when he used the ancient book to identify the snake again, his face suddenly became worse. Pa! At this time, the blood snake's body fell to the ground. A small bag bulged slightly at its throat, but then it quickly disappeared. Obviously, the blood tea flower that had not yet bloomed had been digested by it. Roar! Zhu Deipen roared angrily, turned his body halfway, crushed the stones under his feet, and rushed towards the blood snake again with a rolling gale. The blood snake twisted its body, slid without stopping, and shuttled back and forth on the ground. It could dodge every time Zhu Deipen slashed. And faintly, when the blood snake was dodging the thick-backed knife in Zhu Deipen's hand, the snake head was raised from time to time, as if it was still staring at the other blood camellia flowers on the blood tea tree not far away. Huanglin, you also make a move, and fight quickly. Also, be careful not to let the snake swallow another blood camellia flower on the tree. Chen Ronghuo gritted his teeth. He knew that he couldn't go on like this. After swallowing a blood camellia flower that had not yet bloomed, the blood snake's strength increased in a short period of time, and it was already able to deal with Zhu Deipen. If it swallowed the second most blood camellia flowers, this time it would be reversed by life and death, and it might not be impossible to turn defeat into victory. Young master, be careful. Huanglin hesitated for a moment, and then followed Chen Ronghuo's instructions. He moved his skinny and dark body, holding a short sword, and quickly approached the blood snake. While approaching the blood snake, he glanced at the 3 remaining blood tea flowers on the blood tea tree that had not yet bloomed. His mind moved slightly, and he knew that Chen Ronghuo came here this time, probably for this thing. However, this thought flashed in his mind, and he was abandoned, concentrating on dealing with the blood snake in front of him. After approaching the blood snake, Huanglin did not attack immediately, but held the short sword, left and right, looking for the right time to attack, like a patient assassin. However, even if Huanglin did not attack, with his participation, the blood snake was gradually stretched to its limits while wandering because of more fear. Puff! Zhu Deipen danced the big knife into a gust of wind, and when the knife fell, the blood snake finally dodges in time, and half of its tail was cut off, and blood spurted out. Whoosh! Seeing this scene, Huanglin did not hesitate at all. He lowered his body and shot out like an arrow. After approaching the blood snake, the short sword in his hand swept through like the wind and aimed at the half-raised snake head of the blood snake. Just when Huanglin was determined to win this attack, the blood snake with half of its tail broken off, the blood flowing from the broken tail, suddenly returned quickly, and then underwent an inexplicable change. In a short time, the blood spread all over its body, forming a circle of strange patterns around its body. Bang! As this pattern was formed, when Huanglin was about to end it with a sword, a huge force suddenly burst out of its body, and it hit the ground with the remaining tail, and the whole body flew out instantly, breaking out of the encirclement of Huanglin and Zhu Deipen, and rushing towards Chen Ronghuo in the distance. Young master. Seeing this scene, Zhu Daipen and Huanglin's faces changed suddenly. Bloodline Snake performed the secret technique of burning blood, and its strength and speed increased greatly in a short period of time. Seeing the bloodline snake rushing towards him, looking at its bloody mouth wide open and its fangs sharp, Chen Ronghuo's eyes suddenly showed a trace of horror, and his consciousness almost fell into dullness. This guy must have set his sights on me from the beginning. It eats blood camellia, but only eats one. It definitely doesn't mean that it can only eat one at that time, but it wants to use this to lure the tiger away from the mountain and move Huanglin away from me. Or it can see that I am the weakest. Or it can see that I am the leader of the three, so it wants to shoot the horse first, and capture the thief first. In a flash, Chen Ronghuo's mind also flashed one after another. He knew that demons have wisdom, but he still didn't expect that the wisdom of this bloodline snake would be so high that it would use such a strategy to lure the tiger away from the mountain, show the enemy weakness, and capture the thief and the king. The tail was broken and injured. I'm afraid it was intentional. At the same time, when he identified this blood snake before, he only identified that it was strong, fast, and poisonous, and he didn't identify that it could perform this secret technique. This is also one of the reasons for his misjudgment. Seal. Seeing the blood snake approaching, he could only point his hand. This finger had no practical use, but with one finger, the 4 points of energy accumulated by the ancient book for a day were all exhausted, and most of the power condensed in the attack of the blood snake that had just taken off was sealed. The power of the blood snake, after unsealing, it can be added to itself. The number of times is 1/1. After sealing the power of the bloodline, Chen Ronghuo did not hesitate, and directly lifted the seal and added it to himself. Then he turned his footsteps and quickly avoided the attack of the blood snake. After he dodged, the blood snake, which suddenly lost its power, wanted to twist its body in mid-air and continue to chase him. But in the end, under the influence of inertia, it crashed into the cliff in front of it with a confused face. Bang! Its snake body fell to the ground. Its eyes were blank. Die! Zhu Daipen, who followed closely behind the blood snake, burst into blood in the knife light, and in a flash, just before the cunning blood snake could dodge, he cut it in half from its 7 inches. At this time, Chen Ronghuo, who stopped his body, turned his head and saw the blood snake that died with its eyes open. There were still dense sweat on its back. That moment just now was really too dangerous. At the moment when the blood snake opened its mouth, he almost didn't react. He once again realized that in this world, you can't be careless at any time. There are still more than 70 votes to go. Is there any more? At #Yuan. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 53. Young Master. When Zhu Daipen cut the blood snake in two with one knife, Huanglin also turned around immediately and came to Chen Ronghuo's side like a phantom. He lowered his head, not daring to look at Chen Ronghuo. He was obviously still ashamed and uneasy for not being able to stop the blood snake just now. Chen Ronghuo did not speak, but first glanced at the blood snake that was cut by Zhu Daipen. At this time, the blood snake was cut into 2 parts, and the snake body was still twisted on the ground, as if it was not dead yet. Blood snake. Status: suspected death. Its life has come to an end, but the snake soul is still hidden, and it can slightly control the snake head to attack the approaching enemy. This snake is not dead yet, Zhu Daipen, be careful, smash its snake head. Chen Ronghuo said. This snake is too cunning, he has to be careful. Zhu Daipen was shocked when he heard the words. Without any hesitation, he raised his arm, and the thick back knife fell from top to bottom again. This blood snake has lived in the Misty Valley for many years and cannot understand human language. When Zhu Deipen attacked, it reacted and bounced its head on the ground, trying to avoid it. However, after being seriously injured, its speed was obviously much slower. Zhu Deipen's thick-backed knife spun in the air, and with a bang, it chopped its snake head into pieces. Seeing the snake head explode, Zhu Deipen was relieved. But at this moment, a ball of black air suddenly emerged from the blood snake's exploded head, as if to bypass Zhu Deipen and rush towards Chen Ronghuo. His hatred for Chen Ronghuo seemed to exceed that for Zhu Deipen. Zhu Deipen's expression tightened, and he did not have time to put away his knife. He directly stimulated his blood and qi, and turned his left hand into a claw, like a tiger digging out his heart, and grabbed the ball of black air. At the same time, Xuanhuan, who was beside Chen Ronghuo, also stepped forward in the first time and blocked Chen Ronghuo with a horizontal sword. Boom! The black gas had just rushed forward halfway when it was pierced by Zhu Deipen's tiger claws. With a bang, it suddenly dispersed. Bloodline snake, dead, snake soul dissipated. The snake body is non-toxic and parasitic. It can be eaten after removing the venom glands and fangs. Snake meat is very nutritious and beneficial to martial arts practice. After identifying the condition of the snake again, Chen Ronghuo was completely relieved. Then he looked at Zhu Deipen, who had just grabbed the snake soul with his hands, and Xuanhuan, who stood in front of him at the first time, and nodded slightly. He was not very cunning, but from the instinctive reactions of the two just now, it can be seen that the two were indeed loyal to him. Swish! Swish! Although the snake was dead, Zhu Deipen still raised his knife and stabbed the snake a few more times, as if he was worried that it would come back to life. Then he turned around and said triumphantly, "Sir, this guy will not survive this time, right?" "Yes, he will not survive." Chen Ronghuo shook his head, "but this snake is a second-level demon, a tonic, and beneficial to martial arts practice. You have let out so much of its blood, do you know how much nutrition has been lost?" Zhu Deipen's expression froze. He quickly reacted and immediately squatted down, took out a piece of soft animal skin from the package, and wrapped the whole blood snake in the animal skin. Chen Ronghuo didn't care too much about it. Although Zhu Deipen was not very smart, from his performance just now, he was brave enough and loyal to him. That was enough. Because he was looking for such a guard. Suddenly. Just when Chen Ronghuo was thinking about this, his nose moved suddenly and he smelled a refreshing fragrance. Could it be? The thought flashed, and he turned his head and looked at the blood tea tree at the end of the cave. At this glance, he immediately saw that the 3 remaining blood tea buds on the blood tea tree were blooming at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, Xuanhuan and Zhu Deipen also turned their heads. Sniff. The fragrance released when the blood tea blooms is extremely tempting. Xuanhuan's performance is better, but Zhu Deipen can't help twitching his nose to smell the fragrance released when the blood tea blooms. "Aren't you afraid that this thing is poisonous?" Hearing the movement, Xuanhuan turned his head and looked at Zhu Deipen unhappily, feeling that this guy was too embarrassing. Zhu Deipen blushed. He scratched his head, and a light flashed in his mind, and he argued, "Of course I am afraid. But I sniffed so many times, and I was poisoned first. When you and the young master see me poisoned, you will have time to respond." Xuanhuan was speechless. Chen Ronghuo also turned his head to look at Zhu Deipen. What he said made him feel very good. Without paying attention to Zhu Deipen, he looked around the blood tea tree for a few times, and used the ancient book to identify everything. After confirming that there was no danger, he walked towards the blood tea tree. Blooming blood tea flower, lifespan of 3 minutes. You take a blood tea flower and digest it for half a day, and you can become an apprentice-level peak warrior. After that, as long as you master a technique, you can advance to the warrior realm. but the blood tea flower must be picked within 3 minutes, after which its spiritual energy will quickly disappear. Within 3 minutes of picking it, it must also be stored in a golden container, otherwise the spiritual energy in it will still quickly disappear. This thing. Chen Ronghuo frowned a little. Because he didn't know about this in advance, he didn't prepare a golden container at all. In other words, he could only use these 3 blood tea flowers on the spot, and couldn't keep them. He could only use one himself, and it was useless to have more. Then the remaining 2 can only be allocated to Huanglin and Zhu Deipen. In fact, there is nothing wrong with allocating them to Huanglin and Zhu Deipen. Judging from the performance of the 2 just now, both of them are still loyal and useful. But the key is that he is thinking about how to take the blood camellia. Will there be any abnormality after taking the blood camellia? Will this abnormality expose his strength in front of Huanglin and Zhu Deipen? His eyes flashed for a moment, and Chen Ronghuo's mind suddenly moved. He stretched out his left hand and touched one of the blood camellias. He suddenly thought that in addition to the ancient book, he also had a left hand. He might be able to use his left hand to feel out the nutrients in the blood camellia, and then integrate it back afterwards, so that he would not be afraid of the loss of its spiritual energy. When his fingers touched the blood camellia, a trace of warmth emerged. Chen Ronghuo stood quietly in front of the blood tea tree, gently brushing it, as if he was lost in thought, and people looked at him as if he was thinking about something. Blood camellia's nutrition add 1. Blood camellia's digestibility add 1. After a while, Chen Ronghuo's eyes lit up, and he touched out the attributes one by one. However, the attributes of the blood camellia were all of high level, and he had to touch them many times before he could touch out one. In addition, there were many attributes inside, and it took more than 2 minutes, when the blooming time of the blood camellia was about to end, for him to touch out all the attributes of a blood camellia. Not far away, Huanglin and Zhu Deipen looked at each other, not knowing why Chen Ronghuo put his hand on a flower and slowly stopped moving. But seeing that the color of the flower touched by Chen Ronghuo gradually dimmed, they also guessed that Chen Ronghuo was definitely not doing this out of boredom, but doing something they didn't understand. Okay. Suddenly, after thoroughly figuring out the properties of a blood camellia, Chen Ronghuo turned his head, glanced at Huanglin and Zhu Deipen and said, "This flower is called blood camellia, which can improve the cultivation of warriors. Each of you pick one and take it." While speaking, he picked up the blood camellia that he had absorbed all the properties of, and the color became dim, as if it would dissipate if touched. This thing should be kept. It would be very troublesome to integrate the properties he found from it into other things. After all, not all things can be integrated with other properties in large quantities. And it would be much simpler to integrate those properties back into this flower. Yesterday's super daily push exceeded 400, and there will be 3 updates today, still at 12 noon for the second update and 6 p.m. for the third update, and then release a new task, daily push 404, number 405, only 404, only 404, and continue to add updates tomorrow. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 54. Young Master. Huanglin and Zhu Deipen were a little hesitant. This kind of natural treasure guarded by a demon is extremely precious at first glance, not to mention that the one guarding this natural treasure is a second-level demon. They didn't expect that Chen Ronghuo would give this natural treasure to the 2 of them in the end. Chen Ronghuo shook his head and plucked the 2 remaining blood tea flowers on the blood tea tree with a move of his hand. If he didn't pick them, the 2 flowers would be useless when the time came. "Go on, you guys work with me, and I will naturally not treat you unfairly." He threw the 2 flowers to the 2 of them. Then he said, "Take this thing as soon as possible. The spiritual energy inside will be lost over time and it will not work. In addition, Zhu Deipen, if you are willing, you can stay with me and be my bodyguard in the future." Zhu Deipen's eyes lit up instantly, and he didn't react until the blood camel hit his face. He grabbed the blood camel in his hand and asked quickly, "Young master, are you serious?" Compared to a blood camel, in his opinion, following Chen Ronghuo is the biggest gain of this trip. If he follows Chen Ronghuo, when he goes back, other people in the village, especially Li Haishui, will envy him to death. "You don't want to," Chen Ronghuo raised his eyebrows. "If you don't want to, it's okay, I can find someone else." "Young master, what are you talking about? Being able to follow you is definitely a blessing that I have cultivated for several lifetimes. How can I not want to?" Zhu Deipen smiled and swallowed the blood camellia into his stomach. Although he was happy, he did not lose his mind. He knew that his strength was too weak, and he couldn't even break the house reinforced by Chen Ronghuo. What could he do with Chen Ronghuo? I'm afraid he could only do some small things, right? Therefore, facing the blood camellia, which could enhance his strength, he took it directly without hesitation. As for gratitude, I won't say it. He has decided to sell himself to Chen Ronghuo in the future. He is not a very smart person, but he knows that only loyalty can exchange for strength, so that he will no longer go hunting in the mountains like before, and then see his brothers buried in the mouths of monsters. When Zhu Deipen swallowed the blood camellia in one gulp, Huanglin hesitated for a moment, gritted his teeth and said, "Sir, I wonder if I can also stay with you." Chen Ronghuo glanced at Huanglin, thought for a while and said, "If you are willing, stay with me first." Compared with Zhu Deipen, he values Huanglin more. When he becomes a lord in the future, he will definitely let Huanglin take on some important tasks. But before that, it is not a bad idea to let Huanglin follow him. The most important thing is that once Huanglin is accepted as his guard, he will be able to order Huanglin to do something in the future. "Thank you, sir." Huanglin's dark face suddenly showed an expression of great joy when he heard Chen Ronghuo agreed to his request. Then he raised his head and threw the blood camellia in his hand into his mouth. Chen Ronghuo nodded slightly. He first gave the blood camellia to the two people, and then mentioned the matter of recruiting guards. It was a small strategy that could show his generosity. If he first accepted the two as guards and then gave the blood camellia, it would be a little more utilitarian. As Huanglin and Zhu Deipen swallowed the blood camellia into their stomachs, the fragrance in the stone cave gradually dissipated. However, after swallowing the blood camellia, Huanglin and Zhu Deipen stood still for a while, and their whole bodies suddenly turned red, like a cooked prawn that had just been taken out of the pot, emitting steam. Seeing the two people's appearance, Chen Ronghuo raised his eyebrows. "Huanglin, mid-stage warrior. Warlock qualification, none. Martial arts qualification, 1. Status: after swallowing the blood camellia, the huge spiritual energy in the blood camellia spreads, causing the whole body to be full of blood and qi, and the spiritual energy in the blood camellia can be refined faster by boxing. Without boxing, you can also absorb the spiritual energy in the blood camellia by your body instinct after 2 hours, but you will lose some spiritual energy." After looking at Huanglin, Chen Ronghuo looked at Zhu Deipen again, and found that the two were in the same situation. He was suddenly a little relieved. Fortunately, he was alert enough and did not rashly swallow the blood camellia. If he swallowed the blood camellia, although there would be no danger, he would most likely be seen by the two as a warrior. Although he has always been a sorcerer, it would definitely not be a good thing if his martial arts cultivation was exposed to be only at the apprentice level. At the same time, Huanglin and Zhu Deipen were surprised to feel the huge spiritual energy contained in the blood camellia. They all guessed that the blood camellia was a treasure, but they didn't expect that the effect of the blood camellia was so strong. Without Chen Ronghuo's guidance, after feeling the blood and qi in their bodies, the two of them started to practice the tiger heart refining fist in the cave. The biggest difference between a warrior and a martial arts apprentice is that they can nourish the blood and chi in the lower abdomen. With the blessing of blood and chi, even the weakest formal warrior can break bones and tendons with one punch. Seeing the two start to fight, Chen Ronghuo stepped back a few steps. Then he looked for a while, turned around, and continued to check the cave. The blue light emanated from the dark light stone embedded in the cave, and the sparkling light diffused, coupled with the coldness of the cave, showing a bit of mystery. Through the identification of the ancient book, Chen Ronghuo knew that all these ghost stones were embedded in the cave by a warlock nicknamed Black Snake 200 years ago. So he wanted to see if there were any other things left here. He had never seen a real warlock, and he had to wait until he returned to Xiahe village and subdued Fat Cat before he could become a real warlock. So he had a deep curiosity about the profession of warlock. Generally speaking, there should be no secrets in this cave. So this time, Chen Ronghuo chose to use the ancient book to identify every detail in this cave, the walls, corners, and even the ghost stones. Suddenly, when Chen Ronghuo's eyes fell on a piece of ghost stone with a smooth surface like a ball on the left wall, his pupils shrank. Switch of the Black Snake Heritage Land. Turn the ghost stone to the left to open the hidden Black Snake Heritage Land. After entering the Black Snake Heritage Land, you can take away all his legacy, but you must treat the Black Snake's body well, otherwise you will be cursed by the Black Snake before his death. A line of words appeared on the ancient book. Seeing this line of words, Chen Ronghuo's heart jumped. Black Snake is a top-level magician in the Transcendent Realm. If he were on the current White Mist Island, he would definitely be one of the top people. The inheritance he left behind is definitely not too weak. Entrance to the recommendation ticket, I'm here to ask for votes. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 55. Looking at Huanglin and Zhu Deipen, Chen Ronghuo thought about it and did not act immediately. From the description in the ancient book, there should be no danger in the inheritance place of the Black Snake, but he decided to wait for Huanglin and Zhu Deipen to digest the power of the blood camellia and let them help him open the inheritance place. As for whether the two would covet the inheritance inside after opening the inheritance place, he was not too worried. First, from his observation, the two were quite loyal to him. Second, from their knowledge, they might not recognize the treasures even if they were placed in front of them, and they would not know how to use them. Third, with the mystery he showed, they would not dare to act even if they really had strange thoughts. Boom. Half an hour later, Zhu Deipen turned to the wall on one side of the cave, suddenly clenched his fist, and knocked down a large piece of gravel from the wall. As he punched out, the whole cave was shaken. Seeing this scene, Chen Ronghuo's eyebrows jumped and he scolded, "Stop, do you want to collapse the cave and bury us alive, or attract powerful demons to block us here?" In an instant, his strength soared, and Zhu Deipen, who was still excited, froze. He turned his head and smiled at Chen Ronghuo, "Young master, I am too excited. My cultivation has broken through. I have broken through to the peak of the warrior realm." "So what?" Chen Ronghuo interrupted Zhu Deipen. Zhu Deipen scratched his head and said with a simple face, "I know that my current strength is nothing to you, but no matter what, my cultivation has improved, and I can do more for you in the future." This guy, Chen Ronghuo, stopped talking immediately. Whether this is sincere or flattering, he feels comfortable listening to it anyway. No one blames good words. After Zhu Deipen finished speaking, he was also a little proud. In addition to ability, he decided that he must develop more in this aspect in the future. After another 7 or 8 minutes, Huanglin, who was practicing boxing in a small area, stopped his moves and slowly exhaled. The white air he exhaled rushed forward 5 or 6 meters before dissipating. "Sir, I've been waiting for a long time." After finishing his practice, Huanglin walked in front of Chen Ronghuo and said with a fist. "No problem." Chen Ronghuo smiled. Then he looked at the two of them and said, also, congratulations to you, congratulations on your cultivation level rising by a small level. This time, Zhu Deipen broke through to the peak of the warrior realm, and Xuanhuan broke through to the late warrior realm. It's all thanks to you, sir. Xuanhuan said calmly. But from his eyes, you can still see his respect for Chen Ronghuo. It's not a matter of whether it's a success or not. Chen Ronghuo shook his head. Then his face suddenly turned serious and he said, but since you have already followed me, I will tell you something today. If you have made contributions in the future, I will definitely reward you. But if you have made mistakes, I will never condone or forgive you. I hope you can all remember this. Xuanhuan and Zhu Deipen were both startled when they heard this, and hurriedly said, don't worry, sir. We don't understand the big principles, but we still understand this principle. It's good that you understand. Chen Ronghuo smiled. Then he took a step and walked to the smooth ball-like dim light stone on the left wall of the cave, and said, I just took a look and found something strange here. Do you see this dim light stone? Xuanhuan, come here and rotate the stone to the left. Rotate the stone to the left? Xuanhuan's eyes condensed. But he did not hesitate, and walked directly to the stone, stretched out his hand, and held the stone. Chen Ronghuo reminded him a step later, although in my opinion, there is no danger in turning the stone, you should still be as careful as possible. Xuanhuan nodded, without showing any dissatisfaction. Immediately, he exerted a little force on his palm and began to rotate the stone to the left according to Chen Ronghuo's instructions. When Xuanhuan rotated the stone, Chen Ronghuo immediately turned slightly sideways. Zhu Deipen reacted a little late, but after seeing Chen Ronghuo's actions, he still remembered his duty as a guard and quickly stood in front of Chen Ronghuo. Kaka. As the dark light stone began to rotate, the cave wall in front of the few people suddenly cracked a deep crack after a noise. A decayed smell emanated from it. It was like a sealed ancient door, which opened in front of the few people. Kaka. Until Xuanhuan twisted the dark light stone to the end, a closed room appeared in front of the few people. This room was square, and after opening it, the most eye-catching thing was a man in black sitting cross-legged on the ground. The right side of the face of this man in black was slightly normal. But the left side of its face was covered with dense black snake scales, and even those snake scales extended down from its neck. You couldn't see it anywhere else, but on his bare hands, you could also see such dark snake scales. Who is it? Seeing such a strange man appear in the secret room, Xuanhuan and Zhu Deipen were immediately shocked. The two of them drew their weapons immediately. Even Chen Ronghuo, who knew there was a dead body here in advance, felt his scalp tingling after seeing this obviously abnormal body. Corpse of the black snake, the corpse of the black snake after his death. Some of his power still remains in his corpse. If he can be buried, he can receive the initiation of these powers and accept his inheritance. After accepting the inheritance of the black snake, you need to sit in meditation for 7 days to digest the power. At the same time, the body will show the characteristics of snakes in a short period of time, which will gradually dissipate in the future. The black snake is a bloodline sorcerer, and he inherited the power of the Mongaduo Black Emperor Snake. The Mongaduo Black Emperor Snake ranks 7th on the list of strange snakes. It is a kind of extreme snake and a natural alien. After becoming a Mongaduo Black Emperor Snake bloodline sorcerer, you can only walk the path of snakes and can no longer walk other paths at the same time, you will lose the ability to reproduce. In addition, when you accept the inheritance and become strong enough to transform into a mature Mongaduo Black Emperor Snake, your own strength will reach a bottleneck and it will be difficult to make any progress in your life. At the same time, remember not to disrespect the corpse of the black snake. Taking anything from the corpse of the black snake will encounter his curse. After identifying the properties of the black snake's corpse, Chen Ronghuo was immediately entangled. He was extremely thirsty for power. The inheritance of the black snake was very powerful at first glance. What extreme snake, natural alien species, and the seventh on the alien snake list, it was extraordinary. But accepting the inheritance of the black snake had too many restrictions. Once he accepted the inheritance of the black snake, he would no longer be able to take other paths, and there was no need to think about contracting fat cats. For him, the possibility of losing might be more than gaining. After all, he had the ancient book in his hand, and it was hard to say what opportunities he would get in the future. And there was also the inability to reproduce. As for giving the inheritance of the black snake to Xuanhuan and Zhu Daipen, he rejected it with a move in his heart. He had just given them huge benefits. If he gave them again now, what about in the future? Rewards and punishments should be clearly distinguished. If he gave away such a huge opportunity as the inheritance of the black snake casually, it would definitely not be a good thing. Slowly exhaling, Chen Ronghuo temporarily put aside the entanglement in his heart, looking at the vigilant Xuanhuan and Zhu Daipen, and said, "Put down your weapons, don't disturb him, this is a dead warlock." But after saying this, he suddenly realized that the seventh on the list of strange snakes might not be as powerful as he imagined. If it was really that powerful, how could the black snake die? How could it not even enter the extraordinary realm? Thinking about this, he began to look at other things in the secret room. In addition to the body of the black snake, the most conspicuous thing in the secret room was the few things on the table at the end. 2 scrolls, a large book, a ring, and a transparent glass bottle. The transparent glass bottle was unusually eye-catching. Or in other words, the black and red flame burning wantonly in the glass bottle was unusually eye-catching. However, after Chen Ronghuo carefully identified all the things in the room and confirmed that there was no danger, a strange color flashed in his eyes, and he came to the table and picked up one of the 2 scrolls. Pyromancer's certificate. This certificate is obtained by Black Snake after killing a powerful opponent. After using it, you can obtain the qualifications of a pyromancer. Pyromancer does not conflict with most natural warlocks. After obtaining the qualifications of a pyromancer, you only need to take in a strand of strange fire to become a formal warlock. I am a little hesitant when writing here. How should I choose? The other 3 updates are completed. I continue to ask for votes. I guess it's because the first chapter was not updated in the early morning today. There are so few votes. I guess they were all voted for other books. I don't know if it can reach 400. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Chao Ji Dupang. Chapter 56. Chen Ronghuo picked up the scroll on the table, his eyes moved slightly, and he made a decision in his heart. If he didn't have this Fire Warlock certificate, he might still hesitate whether to accept the inheritance of the Black Snake and follow the path of the Extreme Snake. After all, the Demon Warlock and the Core are contracted demons, and their shortcomings are obvious, and they are too easy to be targeted. But with this Fire Warlock certificate, he can become a dual professional and make up for his shortcomings. And the most important point is, Chen Ronghuo set his eyes on the transparent glass bottle on the table, or the black and red flame burning wantonly in the bottle. Natural disaster magic flame containing the breath of disaster, the 13th on the strange fire list. The Fire Warlock can transfer to the Natural Disaster Magic Flame Warlock. In comparison, this is the real treasure. Chen Ronghuo didn't know what Strange Snake List and Strange Fire List. But since there are 2 such lists, then the things ranked at the top of these 2 lists must be extraordinary. The Calamity Flame is ranked 13th on the list of Strange Fires, not as high as the Mongadude Black Emperor Snake, which ranks 7th on the list of Strange Snakes. But in comparison, there are not so many restrictions for changing jobs to a Calamity Flame Warlock. This is what Chen Ronghuo really values. That is why he made a quick decision. So, it seems that I can become a Calamity Flame Warlock before becoming a Demon Warlock. Chen Ronghuo's heart moved slightly. But he turned his head and looked at Huang Lin and Zhu Deipen, who had come to their senses, and shook his head again. The name of the Calamity Flame is so famous, if he changes jobs to a Calamity Flame Warlock, I don't know if it will cause any trouble. In addition, this place is not a good place, it is easy to attract strange things, it is really not suitable to change jobs here. Thinking of this, Chen Ronghuo turned his head and looked at Huang Lin and said, Huang Lin, take his body and we will leave here. But remember not to be careless and do not touch anything on him. This man left a curse on himself before he died. Once you disrespect him, you may be cursed by him, and then even I can't save you. Huang Lin's heart immediately shuddered when he heard this. He nodded and said, Don't worry, sir, I know what to do. Chen Ronghuo nodded. If he doesn't use the inheritance of the Mongadu Black Emperor Snake himself, he certainly can't waste it. With this inheritance, he can completely train a powerful subordinate. He actually prefers Huang Lin. But whether it will be given to Huang Lin in the end depends on whether Huang Lin can make enough contributions. After Huang Lin finished speaking, he walked to the front of the black snake, looked at it, hesitated for a while, and suddenly walked behind the black snake and picked him up from behind. The body of the black snake was extremely stiff, sitting cross-legged, and Huang Lin picked him up from behind, which looked a little weird. After picking up the black snake, Huang Lin asked Chen Ronghuo, Young master, do you think this is okay? Let's do it. Chen Ronghuo nodded. The black snake had a strange appearance and was covered with snake scales. Once someone saw it, it would probably cause exclamations. But he was worried that if he covered the body of the black snake, the curse left by the black snake would be regarded as disrespectful, causing the curse to erupt, which would be more than worth the loss. It's not that he didn't want to use his left hand to touch out the curse and blood in the black snake's body. But his left and right abilities were random, and once he touched out other things, it might also cause the curse to erupt. In other words, if you want to obtain the inheritance of the black snake, you must not mess around. You must honestly follow the guidance of the ancient book and bury him. After Huang Lin picked up the body of the black snake, Chen Ronghuo also turned around and picked up the other things on the table. Dark Star Meditation, extraordinary meditation, can be used to purify the soul, restore soul power, speed up cultivation, and can also be used to speed up the refining of faith power. A brief history of the world of gods. This is an ordinary book that records some general information about the world of gods. But there are also notes left by Black Snake in the snake language. By understanding his notes, you can find the secret of how Black Snake obtained the inheritance of the Mongadu Black Emperor Snake and why the Calamity Flame fell into his hands. Storage Ring, the ring left by Black Snake, but this ring still contains a seal of Black Snake. You need to become a formal warlock and use soul power to attack the seal for a long time before you can open the ring. In addition to the Fire Warlock certificate and the Calamity Flame, this is the remaining scroll, the book, and the information of the ring. There is no doubt that any of them will be of great use to Chen Ronghuo now, and they are all things he will be able to use soon. After doing this, Chen Ronghuo took a closer look at the secret room again. After finding that there was nothing left, he exited the secret room and returned to the previous stone cave. He put the few things in his hand into the package. The corpse of the blood snake had been collected by Zhu Deipen before, and there was nothing too precious here now. Chen Ronghuo thought about it, and finally walked to the blood tea tree. Blood tea tree, a second-level spiritual tree, blooming once a year, only growing in a dark environment. The roots will soon lose their spiritual energy and die if they leave their original position, and it is difficult to transplant. After changing his subjective consciousness and rechecking the properties of the blood tea tree, Chen Ronghuo's heart moved and he reached out with his left hand. Blood tea tree vitality add 1. Spirit gathering add 1. Nutrition add 1. After more than 10 minutes, the entire blood tea tree became gray and lifeless. The methods of warlocks are usually incredible. Xuanhuan and Zhu Deipen were not surprised to see this scene. After extracting all the attributes of the blood tea tree, Chen Ronghuo had an idea and integrated several toughness attributes he had stored into the blood tea tree. He immediately said, "Come and pull this tree down." Okay. Zhu Deipen agreed and stepped forward as Chen Ronghuo instructed, grabbed the trunk of the blood tea tree with both hands, and pulled it out of the ground with force. Because the tree was integrated with the toughness attribute by Chen Ronghuo, after pulling it out of the ground, many of the roots were tall and tough, and not many were broken. Okay, let's go back. After doing all this, Chen Ronghuo spoke. This time, he can really be regarded as plucking feathers from a passing goose. When Chen Ronghuo left the Misty Valley according to the guidance of the ancient book, those forest mist ghosts followed again. But this time, the three of them just looked at these things for a few times and didn't care about them at all, which was very different from the feeling when they came. After leaving the Misty Valley, Chen Ronghuo looked up at the time and saw that it was already around 5:30 in the afternoon. At this time, it was not dark yet, but the sun was already setting in the west, and a pale white crescent moon also showed a corner. "Sir, are we going to stay here for one night and go back to the village tomorrow, or go back now?" Xuanlin asked. "Go back now," Chen Ronghuo said. According to his original plan, he was going to wait until he left the Misty Valley and go back the next day, because this would allow Fat Cat to be lost for a while longer. But now he has too many treasures on him, so in order to avoid more trouble at night, it is better to go back immediately. Entrance to the recommendation ticket, set up a bowl to ask for votes. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 57. Chen Ronghuo and the other two rushed all the way to Xiahe village. Pa. As they walked, a drop of bright red blood suddenly dripped from Zhu Deipen's package. It was the blood of the blood snake. Chen Ronghuo, who was walking behind, frowned. The body of the blood snake is non-toxic and can be eaten after removing the venom glands and fangs. It is a tonic. It is unknown how much nutrition will be lost if Zhu Deipen takes it back all the way. Before, when they were in the Misty Valley, although the snake was dead, the snake body could still twist, and he was a little afraid to go forward. But now, with the snake completely dead, he naturally didn't have to be afraid of anything. Thinking about it, he said, "Zhu Deipen, take out the body of the blood snake, I will deal with it." Zhu Deipen, who was walking in front, was startled, and then immediately put the package on the ground. After opening the package, he took out the body of the blood snake from the soft animal skin. Chen Ronghuo stepped forward, stretched out his left hand, and placed it on the snake. Bloodline snake's blood add 1. Toxic add 1. Nutrient add 1. Soon, one attribute after another entered his attribute space. After seeing the poisonous attribute of the bloodline snake, Chen Ronghuo thought about what would happen if he integrated the poisonous attribute of the bloodline snake into other lives. Will it be poisoned to death? Or will it become a poisonous life similar to a semi-petrified river crab? Thinking so in his mind, he pulled a grass from the ground, then stood up and said, "Okay, now you wrap him up." "Okay, sir." Zhu Deipen agreed. When Zhu Deipen used soft animal skin to wrap up the almost useless bloodline snake again, Chen Ronghuo had an idea and integrated the poisonous attribute he had just obtained into the green grass in his hand. In an instant, the originally green grass turned into a dark green color. Mutated toxic green bud grass, bloodline snake's toxicity add 15, it kills instantly upon contact with blood, and after being eaten by mistake, the venom can quickly spread to the whole body below the earth level warrior, it will die in one breath. Earth warriors at the early stage can use chi and blood to control it, but can only exert 10% of their full strength. After identifying the brand new green bud grass, Chen Ronghuo's eyes narrowed immediately. This thing, if used well, is definitely a killer. But it is estimated that no one will eat this grass unless they are fools. He thought that he might be able to extract the toxicity of the bloodline snake and integrate it into a certain weapon. But in this way, it is unknown whether so many toxic properties can be integrated. Chen Ronghuo thought about these things while hurrying on his way. Suddenly, after walking a few hundred meters forward, a flash of inspiration came to his mind, and he integrated the vitality, spirit gathering, nutrition, medicinal fragrance, and other properties extracted from the blood tea tree before leaving the misty valley into the grass in his hand. As these attributes merged, after a moment, the grass in his hand suddenly became aglow. It was even vaguely possible to see the surrounding spiritual energy gathering towards the grass in his hand. Mutated toxic green bud spiritual grass. The toxicity of the blood snake add 15, the vitality of the blood tea tree add 2, the gathering of spirits add 3, the nutrition add 7, the fragrance of medicine add 8. This is a mutant spiritual grass with hidden poison. Under the superposition of various attributes, the toxicity is more severe. After the warriors of the early stage of the earth eat it by mistake, they can only have half of their strength in a breath. But on the surface, this is a spiritual grass, a tonic grass that can enhance the chi and blood of warriors. In addition, the integrity of this spiritual grass cannot be destroyed. Once it is destroyed, the spiritual energy will quickly dissipate. The appearance of new attributes surprised Chen Ronghuo. He did not expect that a small grass he pulled out casually could actually integrate so many attributes. But after changing his mind, he shook his head again. He has no enemies now, so it is afraid that such a mutant poisonous spiritual herb will be useless. When Chen Ronghuo and the other two rushed to Xiaohe village, Fat Cat was still lying on the roof of the mud house in Xiaohe village as he did yesterday. It looked in the direction where Chen Ronghuo left yesterday, and its eyes dimmed with the setting sun. It raised a paw. Put it down. And then raised it again. Are you not coming back yet? It has been sunset again and again. You said you would come back today, you will not lie to me like the previous owner, right? Meow. After the sun completely set, it cried hoarsely on the roof, then stood up and jumped down from it. When it came to the yard, it began to drag the semi-petrified river crab hiding in the corner and eating soil into the house as it did yesterday. The big river crab looked at Fat Cat with its protruding eyes and sighed in its heart. I don't know why this big cat is like the human before, dragging himself into the house every night to hide, and then dragging himself out again during the day. At the same time, at the entrance of Xiaohe village, an old man wearing a silk robe with a red flame tattooed on the chest of the robe, under the protection of several warriors, smiled and said to Huang Taizheng, village chief Huang, if that's the case, then let's make a deal. I hope you can do what you say and send 100,000 copper coins and 10 warriors to Lushwiven town as soon as possible. After he finished speaking, he turned his head to the side and looked at Ho-san beside Huang Taizheng and said, and Ho-san, it won't be long before we will serve the Lord together. When that time comes, you must not be as stern as you are now. I know you have deep feelings for Xiaohe village, but this really does not affect your service to the Lord. And as soon as you go to Lushwiven town, you will be granted a 4-star citizen. I don't know how many people will envy you. In addition, with your talent, once you advance to become a warrior of the earth, it is not impossible to become the deputy commander of the guard team. When that time comes, I am afraid that even I will rely on you. And Xiaohe village can also become much more prosperous under your care than it is now. The old man in a silk robe in front of him is Zhu Qiang, the fire magician of Lushwiven town. As Zhu Qiang spoke one sentence after another, Ho-san's face suddenly became uncertain. Although Zhu Qiang was a sorcerer, he did not act arrogantly after arriving at Xiaohe village. Instead, he began to analyze the pros and cons to them. He pointed out the consequences if they did not pay a tax of 100,000 copper coins as required by the Lord of Greenwater Baytown, and promised to send 10 warriors to Greenwater Baytown. What would happen if they agreed? After analyzing it point by point, everyone in Xiahe village was speechless and could not refuse. In particular, Greenwater Baytown also proposed that among the 10 warriors going to Greenwater Baytown, there must be Xuanhuan. It was both coercion and inducement. Once he joined Greenwater Baytown, he would get a lot of benefits. But are these benefits stronger than staying in Xiahe village, following Chen Ronghuo, and awakening to become a sorcerer? Xuanhuan knew it well. But the most important thing now is that he can't refuse. He was only 18 years old, and he had cultivated to the peak of the warrior realm, and he was expected to become a warrior of the earth within a few years. If Lushwiven town can't get him, it is very likely that he will be destroyed. He knew deeply that this was definitely not a lie. Especially in the current situation. If Lushwiven town can't get him, it is impossible not to worry that he will run to Angsha town. And he still has the flaw of Xiahe village. For Xiahe village, he had to agree. Putting bowls together for recommendation votes. There is another chapter at 6 p.m. Don't think it's too little. I don't ask for many votes every day. Now there are almost 3 chapters and nearly 7,000 words every day. There are not many new books in this period. I am afraid that if I update faster, I will not give enough recommendations and put it on the shelves. Judging from the current situation of recommendation votes, the subscription ratio of this book is estimated to be not very good. In fact, if the subscription ratio can reach 10 to 1, I will have no problem with 10,000 words every day from now on, and there will be no subsequent recommendations, but it seems that the possibility is too small. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 58. In the dark of night, Chen Ronghuo and the other 3 rushed to Xiahe village. Along the way they came. If there were only 2 people, Zhu Daipen and Huang Lin, even if Huang Lin was holding a dead body that was half human and half snake, Zhu Daipen would be carrying a tree much faster than now. Chen Ronghuo's physical fitness is good. After coming to this world, his physical fitness has improved a bit, but this is only compared with ordinary people. Compared with Huang Lin, who is in the late stage of the warrior realm, and Zhu Daipen, who is at the peak of the warrior realm, he is far behind. I don't know how many times. Suddenly, when a group of people arrived at the junction of Hongyu village and Qinjian village, they looked from a distance and saw brightly lit lights and flames rising in Hongyu village. Along with the fire, shouts of killing rang out from a distance. The shouts of some of them were even deafening. Even if it is several miles away, it can be heard clearly. Wuji, Xiechun Tong, do you really want to kill me? Killing them all will never be enough. As long as you join us in Angsha town, we can work together from now on. You are wishful thinking. Humph, since you are so stubborn, after today, the 3 Earth Warriors in Greenwater Baytown will no longer have your name as Xuan. You really think you've got me? Explode. Boom. Suddenly, a large ball of fire erupted from a distance, and there was a roaring sound. I don't know what happened. Then the shouts of killing gradually disappeared, leaving only the still dazzling firelight swaying around, as if someone was holding a torch and looking for someone. Master. Seeing this scene, Huang Lin and Zhu Daipen's expressions changed. Huang Lin quickly explained, Xuan is one of the 3 Earth Warriors in Lushwiven town. Wu Ji and Xiechun Tong are both Earth Warriors in Angsha town. Don't worry about them, let's get out of here quickly. Chen Ronghuo spoke in a deep voice. The changes that happened here may be related to the changes in the situation in the nearby area in the future, but it has nothing to do with him now. His top priority now is to return to Xiahe village as soon as possible to gain strength. As they spoke, the 3 of them sped up slightly. Of course, when it comes to speeding up, it is mainly because Chen Ronghuo speeds up. Time passed, and after more than half an hour, the three of them were far away from the Red Fish village. At this time, they were only a dozen miles away from Xiaohe village and could arrive in about an hour. It was already past 8 o'clock in the evening, and the silver-white crescent moon hung high, casting a ray of light, making the night a little cold. Plop! Suddenly, as the three of them were speeding up the road in the night, a sound like something falling suddenly sounded from behind the three of them. The expressions of the three of them were startled, and then they all turned around with slightly changed expressions. As they turned around, the three of them immediately saw a dark figure and stood up unsteadily from the ground. Who? Zhu Deipen put down the blood tea tree in his hand, pulled out the thick-backed knife in his hand, and stood in front of Chen Ronghuo. Huanglin also slowly put down the half-human, half-snake corpse in his arms, took out his dagger, and moved to Chen Ronghuo's side. He and Zhu Deipen were both experienced, but they didn't notice any sound when someone approached them. It was obvious that this black shadow was extremely unusual. If this person didn't know what was wrong with him in the end, they might not even notice it until he gets close to them. I am Xuan from Lushwiven town. Which village are you from? Why are you traveling at night? After Xuan stabilized his figure, he asked in a deep voice. Then he approached the three of them step by step. He seemed to be seriously injured, but even so, when he spoke with great pressure, as if he was not afraid of Chen Ronghuo and the others at all. Warriors are not like warlocks. Even Earth-level warriors cannot directly tell a person's strength. But Xuan has rich experience. From the reaction speed of Chen Ronghuo and the others just now, it can be seen that the cultivation level of the three people is absolutely impossible to reach the Earth level. And as long as he does not reach the Earth level, even if he is seriously injured now, he is not afraid at all. Huanglin glanced at Chen Ronghuo, and when he saw that Chen Ronghuo had no intention of speaking, he said, I have met Mr. Su. We are from Xiaohe village. We have just returned from the mountains. I wonder what happened to Mr. Su. At this time, Xuan had already approached the three of them. He glanced at the three of them, and finally narrowed his eyes falling on the half-human, half-snake corpse that Huanglin had placed on the ground. When he saw the corpse and Chen Ronghuo and the other two people wrapped up in small bags, his heart suddenly moved. A smile appeared on his old face and he said, since you are from Xiaohe village, it's easy to talk about. I just fought with the people in Angsha town and was slightly injured. Please escort me to Greenwater Bay town. I remember that each of your villages has to pay a tax of 100,000 copper coins this year. As long as you send me to the local area, I will make the decision this time and I can reduce the tax of 50,000 copper coins in your village this year. As he spoke, he seemed to approach a few people unprepared. Seeing Xuan approaching, Chen Ronghuo and the other two people all frowned. Following Huanglin and Zhu Deipen, they all glanced at Chen Ronghuo. Xuan was a little surprised when he saw this scene. When he first appeared, Chen Ronghuo's reaction speed was the slowest, but now it seems that Chen Ronghuo is the main one among the three. When Xuan noticed Chen Ronghuo also identified Xuan's attributes. Xuan, Warrior of the Earth. Warrior qualification, 2. Status, seriously injured, abdominal concussion, can only exert 50% of one's strength, occasionally make mistakes. But 50% of the strength of the Earth Warrior can also crush 3 or 4 warriors at the peak of the warrior realm. After identifying Xuan's attributes, Chen Ronghuo's eyes flashed, and he said respectfully, Master Su, this place is too far from Lushwiven town, you are seriously injured, how about going back to Xiaohe village with us first? It just so happens that we explored a cave in the mountains this time, dug some things, and also want to send them back to the village. After you go back to the village with us, our village can also send more people to escort you, which is safer. Chen Ronghuo can see that Xuan's expression after seeing the corpse of the black snake just now is obviously wrong. Obviously, with Xuan's experience, he may have seen that they may have gained a huge benefit this time. Chen Ronghuo never mind thinking the worst of people. The corpse of the black snake was too important, and with the fire magician's certificate and the natural disaster flame on him, there must be no mistakes. Xuan noticed it at this time, so he planned to lead Xuan to Xiaohe village, and then see the situation, with the help of Xiaohe village, to get rid of Xuan. He had never killed anyone. But this time, he planned to get rid of an Earth Warrior. And he was one of the 3 Earth Warriors in Greenwater Bay Town, which made people feel crazy. But think about it, once Xuan knew the preciousness of these things in his hands, seizing the treasure was secondary. The first thing Xuan had to do was probably to kill a few people to silence them. Xuan didn't have this idea. Once this matter was accidentally leaked from his mouth, unless he escaped from Beiwu Island, he would probably have a hard time in the future. There was a cold light in his eyes. For his own interests, he had no choice this time. No need to go to Xiaohe village. I have something important to report to the Lord. I don't have that much time to waste. Xuan seemed to have seen through Chen Ronghuo's thoughts, and his voice suddenly became a little cold. These things don't look heavy. You can take them to Lushwiven town. If I'm not mistaken, this should be the body of a sorcerer. What you got are all the things left by the sorcerer before his death. I know what you are thinking. You are afraid that I will embezzle these things. But these things are useless to you. When you arrive at Lushwiven town, I will present them to the Lord. Of course, if these things are useful, the Lord will definitely not treat you unfairly as a person. As soon as Xuan said this, Chen Ronghuo sighed in his heart. Thanks to the 3 book friends Dong, Yugzu, and Xianbai for their rewards. In addition, I also know that you are anxious for the protagonist to improve his strength. I am also anxious, but I find that I am not good at writing pretentious face slapping, so I have to lay more groundwork and raise the sense of expectation. Only when there is more expectation can it be fun. But this time it's really fast. In one more chapter, I should be able to return to the village and gain strength. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 59. You should know that warlocks' things are of little use to ordinary warriors. It's not even useful to me. If these things of yours are valuable, you can even exchange them from the Lord for treasures that enhance the warrior's cultivation. This is the most correct choice. Xuan was good at tempting him to speak. But Chen Ronghuo didn't listen at all to what he said next. What effect does a treasure that enhances a warrior's cultivation have on him? What kind of treasure has a pyromancer certificate, a black snake's body, and a natural disaster demon flame that is so important and precious? At this moment, the murderous intention in his heart had burst out. Therefore, after Xuan finished speaking, he immediately said respectfully, "My lord, what you said makes sense. In this case, we will escort you to Greenwater Bay. Just before we go to Greenwater Bay to collect it, can you help us identify our harvest this time? We want to know in advance how much we will gain from this trip." What he said was clear and coherent, making it impossible for others to find any flaws. Xuan was too powerful. Even if he was seriously injured and only had 50% of his strength, the 3 of them would not be able to deal with him. So he planned to further weaken Xuan's strength. The only way he could do this was to give Xuan the mutated green sprout poisonous weed that he had accidentally fused before, and let Xuan eat it on the spot. Of course, Xuan is not a fool. He can't just randomly put a piece of spiritual grass in his mouth when he sees it. So he still needs to make some more preparations. Xuan raised his eyebrows. Without knowing one thing or another, he naturally couldn't see Chen Ronghui's purpose. He thought that if there was something useful to him in what Chen Ronghuo and the others had gained this time, it might be a good idea to keep it in his hands. "All right," he said, "but I am really in a hurry to return to Greenwater Baytown. You should try your best to hurry up." "Thank you, sir." Chen Ronghuo quickly spoke respectfully and took out the mutated green bud poisonous spiritual grass from his pocket. His other things were all in the package. Only this grass was put in his pocket casually. Of course, before putting the grass in his pocket, he had already put all the attributes in the grass back into the attribute space for fear of an accident. At this time, in the process of taking out the grass, he incorporated those attributes into it. But he didn't incorporate the poisonous properties into it. Mutated green bud grass, blood tea trees vitality add 2, spirit gathering add 3, nutrition add 7, medicinal fragrance add 8. Contains powerful medicinal power, which can enhance the warrior's chi and blood. It can be used to make medicine or be taken directly. In addition, the integrity of this spiritual grass cannot be destroyed. Once destroyed, the spiritual energy will disappear quickly. After taking out the mutated green bud poisonous spiritual grass, Chen Ronghuo said, "Sir, take a look at this grass first. This grass seems to be green bud grass, but it looks very weird. We have seen a total of 2 plants in the mountains before, and this is one of them. After the other one was accidentally broken by us, it began to leak spiritual energy. At first we didn't dare to move, but later we thought it was too wasteful, so Huanglin ate the grass with most of the spiritual energy flowing out. He was in the middle stage of the warrior realm before, but soon after eating this grass, his cultivation level increased to the late stage of the warrior realm. But we have never seen this thing before. Sir, you are well informed. Can you help us take a look? Is there anything wrong with this grass?" Because the mutated green sprout grass is integrated with the spirit gathering properties of the blood tea tree, after Chen Ronghuo took it out, he could vaguely see a series of spiritual cyclones converging on it. Chen Ronghuo estimated that the blood tea tree might be too big and the spiritual energy was distributed throughout the tree, making it difficult to see with the naked eye. The green sprout grass is too small, and the spiritual energy is concentrated in a small area, so it can be seen by the naked eye. Xuan's eyebrows jumped slightly the moment he saw the mutated green grass without the poisonous properties. Not only was he seriously injured at this time, but his energy and blood were also severely depleted. This grass is extremely extraordinary at first glance. If he can use this grass to restore his energy and blood, his injuries can be suppressed quickly. However, with his caution, he would never dare to use something of unknown origin. At this time, after Chen Ronghuo finished speaking, he had already presented the green sprout spirit grass in his hand to Xuan with his left hand. However, during the presentation process, he inconspicuously used the nail of the thumb of the hand holding the green bud grass to lightly scratch the stem of the green bud grass. With this move, the integrity of the mutated green sprout grass was destroyed, and a large amount of spiritual energy began to escape from it. Circles of spiritual energy emitted from the green buds of the spiritual grass, like cloud-white mist. In the dark night, it was dense and misty, as if it were illusory. It's just that you don't need to think about it. It won't take long for the spiritual energy in this grass to disappear. Not good. Chen Ronghuo's expression changed sharply, and he quickly took back the green buds and spiritual grass he sent out. He followed him and said quickly, "Sir, it's my fault that I accidentally broke this grass. As soon as this grass is broken, spiritual energy will spread out. Do you see it now?" At this moment, Xuan's face was extremely gloomy. Based on the mystery revealed by this spiritual grass, even if it contains highly toxic substances, it is probably worth a lot of money. But now, such a spiritual grass was actually broken by Chen Ronghuo. His cloudy eyes stared at Chen Ronghuo, trying to see if Chen Ronghuo did it on purpose and what he wanted to achieve. For example, this grass is actually poisonous. Chen Ronghuo broke the grass to make himself anxious, so that he would not think too much in his anxiety and take the grass directly. However, under Su An's gloomy gaze, Chen Ronghuo did not show any abnormality. At this time, he showed anxiety and the panic when he made a big mistake. He looked at the green bud spirit grass in his hand, and after a moment, he suddenly gritted his teeth and said, "Sir, this thing has been broken. I guess it will be worthless when it is taken to Green Water Bay Town. Look, how about letting me eat this thing first?" Su An's heart suddenly moved when he heard this. Another idea came up. That is, whether Chen Ronghuo was worried that this thing would not belong to him when it arrived in Green Water Bay Town, so he did it on purpose. Deliberately destroy this grass, and then want to take the opportunity to eat it. Just when he had this idea, he saw Chen Ronghuo holding the green bud spiritual grass and putting it in his mouth. Sizzle! In an instant, Chen Ronghuo took a small bite of the green bud spiritual grass on the leaf. After taking this bite, he showed his big white teeth and smiled at Xuan. "Sir, my strength is low, I dare not eat too much of this spiritual grass at one time, can you wait for me for a while? Wait until I digest this spiritual grass, and then we will leave." When Chen Ronghuo spoke, a trace of spiritual energy seeped out from the gap in his mouth. Seeing these seeping spiritual energy, Su An's eyes were red, and he even wanted to kill Chen Ronghuo. At this time, he was sure that there was nothing wrong with this spiritual grass. The reason why Chen Ronghuo did this was because he didn't want to give this spiritual grass to Lushwiven Town, but wanted to eat it himself. He took a deep breath, looked at Chen Ronghuo deeply, and remembered him. It was the first time that he was played by someone who was not as strong as him. "Give me this spiritual herb. I was seriously injured before, and it is just right for me to use this spiritual herb to recover," Xuan said coldly, "but don't worry, I will definitely compensate you after using this spiritual herb." As he said this, he took a step forward and snatched the mutant green bud spiritual herb from Chen Ronghuo without waiting for Chen Ronghuo to react. After snatching the mutant green bud grass, he put the whole root into his mouth without any hesitation and chewed it. Chen Ronghuo saw this scene, and a strange color appeared on his face. Then he took a few steps back slightly. Just like retire after success. Continue to set the bowl. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 60. Neither Huanglin nor Zhu Deipen knew where the mutated spiritual grass in Chen Ronghuo's hand came from. But seeing Xuan actually snatching the mutant green sprout spirit grass from Chen Ronghuo's hand, the two of them immediately stepped forward and blocked Chen Ronghuo's body. At the same time, they looked at Xuan with slightly cold eyes. "I told you what you are going to do, and I will make up for you afterwards." Make up. Puff. Suddenly, in the middle of speaking, Xuan opened his mouth and quickly spat out the mutated green sprout spirit grass that he had just swallowed. It's just that the mutated green sprout spirit grass he spit out is no longer green, but pitch black. At the same time, the rich black color started from his mouth and spread to his whole body. Almost in the blink of an eye, his entire body became extremely dark. Xuan, warrior of the earth. Status: seriously injured, deeply poisoned. When the two are combined, death will occur within 10 breaths. Within 10 breaths, his strength is less than half of what he was at his peak, and ordinary warriors can entangle him to death. After identifying Su Angzhen's attributes, Chen Ronghuo immediately shook his head. The first time he killed someone, he didn't have much fluctuation in his heart. In fact, he was mentally prepared not long after he came back to this world. "You poisoned me? How did you poison me? How dare you poison me? Aren't you afraid that after I die, the Lord will find out and destroy your entire Xiaohe village?" Xuan's body was shaky, and he stared at Chen Ronghuo with crazy and dead eyes, as if he wanted to see how Chen Ronghuo would answer. Kill him. Chen Ronghuo didn't answer, but took another step back and waved. After discovering that Xuan was actually poisoned, Huanglin and Zhu Deipen were startled. Neither of them expected that Xuan had been poisoned by Chen Ronghuo without knowing it. However, after Chen Ronghuo spoke, both of them took a deep breath, stepped forward together, and quickly attacked Xuan. Now that Chen Ronghuo has taken action against Xuan, he must not be left alive. As long as they kill Xuan and then destroy the body and eliminate all traces, Lushwiven town may not be able to find them. Puff. Puff. There were two sounds of sharp blades digging into flesh. The next moment, Xuan fell to the ground with a thud. At this time, he couldn't even do anything to an ordinary warrior, let alone Huanglin and Zhu Deipen. Xuan, the earth warrior, is dead, and there is strong poison inside his body. Sir, should we find a place to bury his body, or should we take it back to Xiahe village and find a way to deal with it? After doing this, Huanglin asked. No need. Chen Ronghuo shook his head, walked to Xuan's body, squatted down, and stretched out his left hand. When Xuan was poisoned with poison just now, although his heart was beating violently, he was more excited than afraid. But when he put his left hand on Xuan's body, he felt a hint of fear. But it was just a trace. This trace of fear was quickly dissipated by the attributes he took out from Xuan's body. Mutated poison add 1. Warrior qualification add 1. Strong bones add 1. For 7 or 8 minutes, Chen Ronghuo kept his hand on Xuan's body and did not take it away. 7 or 8 minutes later, when Chen Ronghuo took his hand away from Xuan's body, he waved it lightly. In an instant, Xuan's body, along with his clothes and other items, were all turned into fly ash. Let's go. After doing this, Chen Ronghuo stood up and clapped his hands. Then he took Huanglin and Zhu Deipen and quickly left here. While rushing to Xiahe village, Chen Ronghuo said, "What happened just now?" However, when he had just finished speaking, Huanglin said, "Don't worry, young master, we will all rot in our stomachs about what happened just now and pretend that we didn't see anything." Chen Ronghuo shook his head and smiled, "I want to ask you. Do you have any thoughts on Xuan, who I just killed? Enlightenment. What insights?" Zhu Deipen was puzzled. Huanglin, after thinking deeply, said, "Young master, you want to tell us that we must be vigilant in our actions in the future and not be like Xuan. Right." Chen Ronghuo nodded. This time he used poison and trick to kill Xuan. This was inconsistent with the enigmatic image he displayed, and he had to make up for this. "You must keep in mind that warlocks have many weird and various methods," he said calmly. "Even if I can't use many methods now, I can still poison an earth warrior to death with just a little trick. If it were someone else, it might not be possible. Know if you encounter something similar in the future, don't be careless." What the young master said is absolutely true, we must keep it in mind. As soon as Chen Ronghuo's words came out, Huanglin and Zhu Deipen were shocked. At the same time, I thought that if Chen Ronghuo did this, he was deliberately showing it to them to deepen their impression, right? They were still a little confused when they saw Chen Ronghuo's humble look when facing Xuan. But as soon as Chen Ronghuo's words came out, they immediately had no doubts. Chen Ronghuo nodded slightly and continued, "Another point is, do you know what my killing of Xuan means to Xiahe village this time? Killing Xuan means that he may become enemies with Lushwiven town. This point will probably form a knot in the hearts of Huanglin and Zhu Deipen. As their leader and superior, he must correct their thoughts. At the same time, he can also test them by asking about this matter. Or, to test Huanglin. See if Huanglin can realize what consequences this matter will lead to." But as he thought, after hearing his words, Zhu Daipen immediately scratched his head and showed a tangled look. Huang Lin hesitated for a while and said, once Xuan dies, judging from the current situation, Angsha town will definitely have an advantage in this war. But please forgive my stupidity, I can't see what benefits this will bring to Xiaohe village. Chen Ronghuo shook his head and said, do you know that your father is an earth warrior? I know, but my father. Huang Lin stopped talking halfway. Then he showed a look of surprise and said, young master, you mean, you can cure my father's hidden injury? If Huang Tishan's hidden injury is recovered, then Huang Taizheng will become a real earth warrior. In this way, after Su An's death, Lushuivan town lacks an earth warrior. In the case of being at a disadvantage in the battle with Angsha town, what will it do to Xiaohe village? Suppress. This is almost impossible. In addition to suppression, it will most likely take a lot of effort to win over. Seeing Huang Lin's enlightenment, Chen Ronghuo nodded slightly. He has almost solved the problem of strength now, so the next step is to find a way to become a lord. To become a lord, naturally you need people. Under such circumstances, he will naturally not let Lushuivan town take away most of the warriors in Xiaohe village, and this time Su An's death is his chance. This was a chance for him to survive in the gap between Greenwater Bay Town and Red Sand Town before and after he became a lord. In this exchange, the group quickly walked the last dozen miles and saw Xiaohe village not far away. No one is perfect, but I feel that my protagonist still has some IQ, so I'm going to put out a big bowl to ask for recommendation votes.